Welcome to Queenmaker. This is a spirit-led conversation space for women who lead, create, and influence with intention. I'm Natasha Hilsman, and here we explore wisdom and strategy, mentorship and legacy, and what it truly means to lead with presence, clarity, and soul. Queenmaker was created for women who are done rushing, done shrinking, and ready to be visible without abandoning themselves. Because queens are not born, they are made. So wherever you're listening from, take a breath, settle into yourself. You're in the right place. I've seen courage up close. I've been beside and behind women in leadership as they prepared to step into rooms where they didn't always know if they would be accepted. I've seen the pause, the deep breath, and sometimes even the tears, and the quiet question in the background. And that question is, can I do this? And this is before they walked in anyway. This conversation is for that woman, the one who goes even when she's unsure. Courage isn't about certainty. It's about deciding to step forward, whether you're expected, welcomed, or not. And once you're there, not every space is meant to hold you. For more than 25 years, I've watched a woman navigate that truth in public, high-pressure spaces, in complicated moments, and in rooms where she was often the only woman and sometimes the only person of color. She didn't wait to be invited. She didn't shrink to fit. She learned how to stand, how to lead, and how to discern. Today's conversation is about that kind of courage, the kind that gets you into the room, and the wisdom to know what to do once you're there. Let's begin. Sharon, welcome to the Queenmaker Podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad I'm here as well.
Can you believe this?
No.
No, you said no.
No.
It's so awesome. Well, I think I told you when I was thinking about this episode, which is the episode is called Courage and Resilience. There is no other person that I could think of that I would want to talk to and that we can learn from but you. And so I know for us Tennessee folks, we all know who you are, but people may not know who you are. So just for a minute, can you just talk to us about who you are, Sharon?
Who I am is a person who lives passionately, who loves passionately. Everything that I do with passion, no matter what that is. I'm a person who I like to think is loyal, almost to a fault. And once I love completely.
Yeah.
That's me.
And yeah, I know that's you. You taught us so much. So I want to just quickly, I want to make sure for our, the maybe people who are listening, like I've known you for more than 25 years and it was, we met, I remember first seeing you you were in a community event. That's really where I saw you move and things like that. And that has turned into 25 years is a long time of mentorship. And I really have some questions for you today, and I think we can learn from you. So we'll get into it. So Sharon, we all know that you've walked into rooms knowing you would be seen. And we've talked about a lot about visibility on this podcast. So when you look back, what made you decide to stay visible, even when that came with some type of weight? Why were you visible?
Well, I said that I'm passionate. I said that I love hard. I do everything pretty hard. When people try to make me invisible, the more determined I become to be seen and to be heard.
Okay.
Because I fundamentally believe that I have a right to be any place that I am.
Right. Where did you learn that from?
Life itself taught it to me because by nature, I'm an introvert. So people who
Okay.
know me now and did not know me growing up,
Mm-hmm.
they just don't believe it at all that I'm an
Okay.
introvert. But I had to
Yeah.
force myself to step outside of my comfort zones because the times that I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
required that. I couldn't, it wasn't safe for me outside my environment anymore. Integration didn't take place in Blount County until 1965.
Okay.
And in 1965, I was about to enter into what I thought was going to be the most exciting time, looking forward to the high school years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had anticipated was nothing like what I actually received.
Wow. Yeah. And I remember you have a great story, and hopefully you can tell part of that story today through some of the questions that we're going to ask. So you were often the only woman and sometimes the only person of color in spaces. So let me pause there. Can you tell us, like, why was that? Why were you sometimes the only woman, the only person of color in certain spaces?
I think because my complexion allowed me a little more privilege than for
Mm-hmm.
some other people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those kinds of distinctions, while unpleasant, I
Right.
was very much aware of it, that I'm
Okay.
acceptable in some spaces only because my skin tone is a little light or because my hair, now it's
Mm-hmm.
gray, then it was this lightish red, because my eyes are not dark brown. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I was more acceptable to some people. But what it actually made me, Natasha, was not really okay with any group. I didn't fit in with
Right.
my own because I was too light. I didn't fit
Okay.
in with the race or the demographic or the culture in which I was pushed into because I was too
Mm-hmm.
dark. So I felt like I
Right.
didn't fit anywhere, and I had to find my own space and my own way for navigating in those spaces.
Right. Right. And so did you feel like, being the only woman or being the only person of color in these spaces, did you feel like that you were courageous or you were just
No,
trying to do your thing? Okay.
I was just trying to make it day by day.
Yeah. Can you explain to everyone what your career, like what your role, like the company, maybe we don't say names or whatever, but just like talk to us about the work environment that you were in.
I assume you mean the one that I retired from and not the
That's
one
right.
that I worked for 10 years before that.
Right.
Um, it was hostile.
Okay.
It was unsanitary. It was uninviting. It was not created for females at all. And that
Mhm.
became obvious because um, it wasn't a lot of bathrooms for women,
Okay.
clothes. We had special clothes we had to wear. They weren't for women. So everything was a retrofit from a
Okay.
male sizing standpoint.
Okay. Okay.
Not to
Yes.
mention the fact I was 25 years old.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's really important. Did courage feel like a responsibility to you, or was it like was it a choice, or did you feel like it was that you just, or did you not really think about that?
Well, I inherited from my parents a couple of things. My dad, I inherited stubbornness, and
Mhm.
from my mom, I inherited impatience.
Mhm.
And so I could only be pushed so far, and
Right.
then I come out fighting. So a
Mhm.
lot of it still was just for me survival. It was
Right.
about being the best that I could be. I'm a perfectionist by nature.
Mhm.
And so, introvert, perfectionist, a place where you're not wanted, you're not invited, you feel like you're tolerated more than accepted. All of
Mhm.
those things, after a little while, just really begins to grate on you, and you rise
Right.
up against those feelings,
Right.
whatever feels natural to you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I was just surviving,
Yeah.
doing the best I could, and not what I was expecting at all, not what I was
Mhm.
told when I was hired at all.
Okay.
Um, so it was really hard. There was primarily a group of people that were determined that I would not stay, that they could make me fail, and so they
Mhm.
made it their mission every day to run me off, to make me give up
Mhm.
and quit. And the
Mhm.
more determined they became, the more
Right.
determined I became.
Mhm.
I came under my own power, I'll leave under my own steam.
So do you feel like that was courage or that's resilience? Because, we're going to talk about, what your definition is for resilience, because, that's a word that a lot of people use. And you know, I just wonder sometimes if people actually know what that is.
Well, I wasn't thinking about it at all at that time. I was just being stubborn about it. You think you're going to run me off, and I'm determined you will not.
Right.
You will not
Right.
one up me.
Yeah.
The resilience and some of the other terms, courageousness and that kind of thing, didn't even come to my mind until much
Right.
later. I'd already been working for quite a while.
Right.
It was
What
just
what
sheer determination.
what is your definition of resilience?
For me, it's the ability to bounce back. Not that you won't
Okay.
fall or not that you won't get knocked down, not that things won't happen, but that you don't stay down. That you're able to get up, dust yourself off, try again, never give
Okay.
up.
Did you not ever get tired, Sharon? That's because you worked at that place for a very long. You said you retired, so they obviously didn't run you off because you retired from there, right?
Got my full 30
um,
years.
oh, your full 30 years, and then
Got my full 30 years, yes.
yeah, and then we all know like you've done so much for the community where you live and beyond that. So nobody ran you out of anywhere. Um, but how did you stay grounded during that time? Like, and I know you were saying like, you're determined, and that if someone really, if there was their mission to kind of run you off, you wouldn't do it. But what did that actually look like? How did you ground yourself to continue to go back into that workforce every single day for 30 years?
Primarily because of what I said when I introduced myself for who I am. It was about family and about my son. Um, I wasn't doing it for me. If I was doing it for me, I would have stayed where I was and never gone to that place to begin with, to that company to begin with. I was happier in my other position, but I also had to travel.
Right.
I enjoyed what I was doing. It was marketing, it was communications, it was PR, it was all of that, those kinds of things. But I was traveling a lot and gone for a long period of time. And so I was gone so much that I came home from a 3-week journey or a 3-week stay in Chicago. And I came home and my son was calling his Nana, his mama, and I'm going, can't live like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't live like that.
What did you
So
do?
the going every day, well, here's the thing, Natasha. I didn't do anything. And
Okay.
that's why I can say that there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
I worried about it. I thought something's got to happen, something has to change. But before I even began a process of maybe looking for another position or any of that, the door opened for me. So the opportunity to go to the place where I spent the majority of my working career, they called me, I didn't call them. It's
Right.
not a place that I would have gone on my own. It never entered my mind. Going into manufacturing never entered my
Right.
mind.
Right.
But I got the call.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about that is that recommendations for me was made from people that I met in the very first job that I took.
Okay.
And I found that the person who called me, I went to school with his daughter. And so
Okay.
he knew about me from his daughter. Then he heard about me from other individuals in the community that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time, because when they met me, I was 18, 19 years old.
Right.
So it's I feel like it was God's plan, God's purpose for my life to begin with, because most of what I have done, most of what I have attempted to do was not my idea.
Right. Yeah.
And to
Yes.
this day, to this day, if left alone, I'll stay at home.
Yo,
I'm
I
perfectly,
know,
I
I
will
know you
stay at
love.
home.
I'm surprised I got you to come out to even do this podcast at all, Sharon. Like I know you like being
It's,
at home. So,
it's only because I love you so dearly.
oh yes, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. So, on so far, we've had several episodes and we've really talked about, because this is called Queenmaker. So we're really talking about women in leadership, and visibility is something that we've discussed in previous episodes. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So you didn't just occupy space. So I want to make sure it's very clear. Like you're making it seem like you just showed up every day and did your job, went home. Like you own those spaces that you were in. Okay, that's my opinion, and you held responsibility for it. How did you think about visibility once you realized people were watching you?
How did I feel about it, or how did I react to it?
How
Those are
did
different for me.
mm-hmm. Both?
What I what I what I felt about it was I was insulted that I was
Okay.
placed under a microscope. I
Mm-hmm.
was angry
Mm-hmm.
that people felt that I need to be the one that they were focusing on, and that barriers were deliberately being placed in front of me for failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran the gamut of all the emotions that were given at birth, usually in
Mm-hmm.
the span of a single day. I
Okay.
was working in an environment that was a union environment, but most
Mm-hmm.
of the adversity that I encountered was not from the union. It
Okay.
was from my own side.
Okay.
And so
I
my
see.
peers,
Okay.
I'm not a person who particularly cares for backhanded behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the need for some of the things that I endured on the job was never necessary. But
Mm-hmm.
then I realized one day that
Mm-hmm.
the reason I was the focus of so much attention is my light must be shining. There must be
Okay.
something that they're afraid of.
Okay.
So once I became aware of that, then I could use
Mm-hmm.
that to my own
Mm-hmm.
advantage without really changing who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did
the
you assume that?
manipulation kind of changed.
Right. So, Sharon, did you assume in the beginning that the visibility that you had was for a negative reason?
I knew
Did
that
you
it
feel like
was.
you knew that it was for a negative reason, and then did you figure out that did you decide to turn it into positive, or did someone tell you like, hey, actually you can use that, it could be positive, it doesn't have to be negative?
I figured it out pretty much on my own because it was a
Okay.
day by day journey.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to not allow people the power to change who I am and how I showed up every day,
Mm-hmm.
because the environment, the atmosphere was already set for an us against them mentality.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I found that not only was I being victimized, but so
Mm-hmm.
were the persons that I was hired to manage. And
Okay.
so I had come to the realization that we were in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
And because I took the step to talk honestly
Mm-hmm.
with my union brothers and sisters, as well as my peers, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you think that we have to be, the thought process was, if you could get along, you weren't doing your job. And
Okay.
so that was just unbelievable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, for me, I began to really take in earnest the golden rule: do
Mm-hmm.
unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And I didn't treat people any differently. But
Right.
by the same token, they came to realize that I did have a point where you couldn't push me past.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it became I'll give you respect, but I expect it in return and will hold you accountable when you are not, no matter who
Right.
that is. And that
Right.
sometimes was up the rank a little bit. And so people saw that as pure courage. But for
Right.
me, it was just determination.
Right.
It, they had to understand, as well as everybody else had to understand, I had a right to be where I was. I didn't call you, you called me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You must have wanted me here, you made me an
Right.
offer. I
Right.
accepted your offer. I'm doing
Right.
all that I can to hold up my end of the bargain, but you will hold up your end of the bargain as well, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to stay. I came of my own accord, but I can also
Mm-hmm.
leave of my own
Right.
accord. And they never had
Yeah.
anybody to stand up for themselves in that way, let alone a
Yeah.
female.
Well, that's how what you taught us to remind people. So, one of the podcasts I was talking about, being reminded about why you're in those spaces. And, you know, sometimes if you have a really great leader, they do remind you because you forget sometime. And really, you're there for a reason because you have something to offer and to contribute. So, if someone makes you feel like that's not true, you got to remind yourself about that first. And then maybe sometimes you do have to remind other people about why you're there. So
I did
I'm
have
sure
to
you did that.
I did have to remind them because, the truth is you're not doing me any favors. You're paying me
Right.
a salary once a
Mm-hmm.
month, and I'm keeping up my end of the bargain. And
Right.
so, and I must be keeping it up pretty well because I have no negative reviews, quarterly
Yes.
or annual reviews.
Right.
And so, for me, it was about everybody needs to do what they're supposed to do. You
Mm-hmm.
do your thing, I'll do mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Did you feel pressure, Sharon, because the spaces that you were in, do you feel pressure to represent more than just yourself? Do you feel like that you were representing other women or, any other group of people?
I felt pressure not to represent a group. I
Mm-hmm.
felt pressure to always be able to look myself in the mirror and be okay with what I saw. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt pressure for my son to
Okay.
always see me in the right light. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
else's opinion mattered secondarily or dead last compared to what I really wanted respect and who I wanted respect from. And
Right.
so that is what my primary motive for everything I've ever done. I think my
Mm-hmm.
family and my son was definitely the motivating factor for that. That's why I got into
Mm-hmm.
workforce development.
So, Sharon, you've mentored a lot of men and women. I'm thinking, am I exaggerating if I say thousands, thousands? No, probably not that. Hundreds and hundreds of men and women over the years, and I'm definitely one of your people for the last 25 years. And these are folks like if we were all in a room, like we could fill multiple rooms. All the people that you've mentored over the years, a lot of the people I do know, and we do carry your voice with us. Like I can still you know it's been multiple years, but I can think of multiple scenarios where I can hear your voice and you're saying something to me that you said in before. So I told the story on one of the other podcasts about uh, we had the event and we were running that particular event, community event, and I was part of the organizer. So were you, and you were like, Natasha, I know you're behind the curtain. Come on out here. You're like, she's probably hiding somewhere. Do you remember? I remember that. So I do remember, what you said that time. What made you decide to invest in people the way you did? I mean, there's hundreds of us.
Before I went to work, I had 5 children that I was raising, one of my own, and two that belonged to my brother, and two that belonged to my sister. So I
Mm-hmm.
invested in somebody else's children as much as I invested in my own because he was kind of right in the middle of 5 children.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
were everybody was older than him except one, and so I was doing it because I wanted to for love of family. But once I
Right.
got into the workplace, both places that I worked, I realized that women were not being treated equally. Pay
Mm-hmm.
wasn't equal, hours weren't necessarily equal. There were a lot of things that the systems within the workforce were set up to hold us back or down.
Okay.
And so, as I was able to navigate successfully some of those hurdles, being accepted at the table, being in the room, it really became important to me that other people not have to fight as hard as I
Right.
did to achieve some of the same things. It was
Mm-hmm.
also important to me for women to be able to find their own worth because what I saw a lot of and what I was tempted into myself sometimes, quite honestly, is to just give up and say it's a
Right.
whole lot easier to just do something else or to just, forget it, forget the whole thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
The drive on the inside of me would not let me just give up and be manipulated by other people. So if I found that I could be successful in certain ways, then I wanted to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that other people did too. And that
Right.
the people like yourself who were hiding their talent and hiding all of the beauty that they bring to the room, and then hiding their intelligence behind you. You're the one that's making the wheels turn. You know,
Right.
people need to know who you are. They need to
Right.
know that you are as important or more important in some instances than those who are up front. There's always somebody that's making things happen for the upfront person. And so for
Right.
me, it was important that everyone, men and women alike, but primarily women, came to know that we have value, we have worth. And no matter
Mm-hmm.
what somebody else says, if you were not
Mm-hmm.
important, you wouldn't be here at all. They would see to that.
Right.
So come
Right.
out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
step out, stand
Mm-hmm.
up, let them
Mm-hmm.
know my name is,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm here.
Right.
So it
Right.
became very important to me. And some of the things that I went through, I wouldn't wish on my enemies, let alone my friends. And so that was the other part of it. Um, People would not believe some of the experiences that I had. I came out from work once and found a cross burning on the hood of my car.
Mm.
I had people to do what I think my son told me is called catfishing in today's terminology, and they use technology as a means for doing it. Back then, they would use telephones as a means for doing that, and pretending to be someone else, you know, to
Okay.
terrorize, to intimidate, to force, to
Mm-hmm.
make you afraid. And
Mm-hmm.
so there are a lot of things that everybody faces each and every day that's not easy, but they need to
Right.
be commended for
Mm-hmm.
persevering and being resilient.
Mm-hmm.
People who continue to show up day in and day out when they know they're not wanted, they need to know, I see you. I
Right.
appreciate you. I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's primarily why I did what I did.
Sharon, why do you think some of the things that happened to you, and I know your story, it was, not good things. And, I wonder sometime, like, why do women hide? Why do you think that is? Why do we hide?
I think a lot of women hide because they don't have confidence in themselves. No matter what somebody else says about them or praises them, they don't quite believe it. We don't quite think that we measure up. Um,
Right.
and a lot of that probably has to do with, I don't know, how the tendency for women is when we look in the mirror, we don't look expecting to see something good. We focus in on those things that are all wrong. When I came into the building just today, it's a little bit windy
Right.
outside. So the first thing
Yeah.
I did was head for a mirror and look for what is wrong instead of
Okay.
just, you know, the
Okay.
guys will just do their hair down a
Yeah.
little bit, not look in the mirror, going, I'm okay.
Right.
And so
Yes.
we always feel the pressure we have to be better than everybody else. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
the same opportunity for failure as others. You either make it the first time or you don't make it
Right.
at all in some instances, especially back in my day. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit better now. There are more women in more spaces, but I was one of the first in
Right.
the non-traditional roles that I have held
Mm-hmm.
in the workplace, and that's what I was told when I was called. They were intentional in hiring women for these non-traditional
Right.
spaces, and
Right.
so when we think that we're not accepted, even when we're comfortable, and we know we're good at something, when
Yes.
they ramp up, when it ramps up, when it gets tougher, when it gets harder, we begin to doubt ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We buy into the idea that we're the weaker sex, we're the
Okay.
gender that's not good at numbers. We can't be in those spaces, and so you do have periods of doubt. Did I do that right? Did I represent well? Am I as strong as I think I am? Because right now I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling kind of beat up. I'm feeling kind of
Okay.
tired. You know,
Right.
I'm about ready to throw in the towel. And there were some
Yeah.
times that I really was ready to throw in the
Right.
towel. But every
Mm-hmm.
day that I was able to see those 5 children and my own son, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he would say, he would be so proud of me. and I was able
Right.
to maneuver around a little bit so that I could go to his school functions. He was so
Mm-hmm.
proud of his mom. He'd take me by the hand and tell me, everybody, this is my mom. Isn't she pretty? And she
Yes.
smells good.
Y'all.
No, she
She
smells
smells
good.
good.
All of that was important. And when he got a little
Right.
older, I took him into that place where I was working so that he could see that
Mm-hmm.
what I did, he was getting a little beside himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
he was young, and
Yeah.
everybody around him, I didn't want him taking for granted what I had to go through to provide for us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted him to always look to other people with respect as well.
Right.
Didn't want him buying into the idea that what you wore was more
Mm-hmm.
important than who you are. And so I got permission and I took him inside and I took him on tours of the facilities where I worked. And he was really surprised that this
Right.
is what mom did or where she
Mm-hmm.
worked,
Mm-hmm.
where she worked day in and day out. And I think that gave
Right.
him a new respect as well.
Right.
But his
And
respect was the only one I coveted.
yeah. And just to make sure for the folks listening or maybe watching, the contrast of where you worked, it was manufacturing. You were in a non-traditional role. There wasn't a lot of women in those in that space. And like you always says, it was cold in the wintertime and burning up hot in the summertime. There was no air conditioning. And you wore a uniform and you didn't wear you look great, but you weren't wearing a suit with jewelry or anything like that.
Couldn't have any of that. And I went from wearing suits, heels, and in a space that I was thriving and was more to my liking. I didn't own a pair of jeans. I had to
Mhm.
buy jeans to
Okay.
go to work
Okay.
where I was working. I was wearing a
Mhm.
hard hat, which messed up my hair constantly.
Okay.
And it was
Yeah.
such a dirty environment
Mhm.
that your skin, you had to be
Mhm.
very particular about making sure it stayed really clean and you were using
Mhm.
the right products. And so it
Right.
was not glamorous, not fun, but I learned so much and it prepared me for where I am today and some of what I do
Right.
today.
Right. So Sharon, how did you recognize potential in in women that you've mentored? What did you see?
Ca- Can I start with you?
Oh, I guess so.
I'm gonna start with you, and you had a cohort in crime at the time,
Yes.
and both of you are excellent listeners,
Mhm.
and you're excellent followers. One way I identify a leader is by their ability to follow.
Mhm.
If you can't follow somebody else in leadership, you can't lead anybody else
Mhm.
because it becomes all about you and not about what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish, and certainly the people.
Right.
Where I used to work, really valued, they said, people,
Mhm.
but the actions of the company itself didn't always show that.
Right.
And so for me, it became letting people know what I saw.
Mhm.
And so, every a lot of people, those true leaders,
Right.
their motivation is pure.
Yeah.
It's not about themselves, it's about helping others or
Mhm.
about serving
Mhm.
others. And so when I see someone with a servant's heart,
Right.
whether they realize it or not, I show them that. I demonstrate that. I tell them, I see you. I
Mhm.
don't see what you're doing, I
Mhm.
see you.
Mhm.
And I see how you are engaged and how you're invested. So when I met you,
Right.
even as young as you were, what I saw was somebody who had integrity.
Mhm.
I saw somebody who had an attention for detail. I told you I'm a perfectionist and I
Yes.
know one when I see one. I told you that I saw a person of great intellect, which you didn't believe, but I think you believe better now.
Right.
I told you I saw a person who was compassionate, and only compassionate people can really lead effectively because you care about those persons that you're trying to lead.
Right.
And if you can't follow, they won't follow you.
Mhm.
So you have to also be a person that can live up to what you expect other people to do. And so all of those things are apparent when you meet somebody
Right.
and your partner in crime.
Yeah.
Whenever I would speak, I knew that she respected me because of the look on her face. She did not speak until I took a breath or until I finished speaking, and she could tell me back what I said,
Right.
in such a way that she received it. I don't think to this day she realizes just how important she is to what she does and to other people.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that
Yes.
one, but I need for the women that I try to mentor to really wrap their minds around how important they are. And you're not just invited into a room, nor do you have to wait to be invited in a room. If that is your right, if that is your responsibility, if that is your desire, you make your desires known.
Right.
You're as entitled to your desires and your opinions as anybody else is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it.
Yeah.
And so for women, we by nature are nurturers, and we get so into nurturing, whether it's a job, whether it's our children, whether it's our families, whether it's the meal that we're fixing for the ones, preparing for the ones that we love. We get so engaged into the otherness that we lose track of who we are
Right.
sometimes and what we're capable of doing. So, like I told you earlier, for me, it was just getting by day. That's what most of us are doing. We do what we are supposed to do because we nurture those things and those people that we care about.
Right.
And so, when you let somebody know, if you ever encounter a woman who is shrinking
Right.
and hiding behind the curtain as you used to, all you need to do is say, "I see you," and there's
Yes.
no need to be back there. You don't have to. You've got things that need to be seen by others. You need to come out here and shine.
Sharon, and even then when you said that, I still remember, it's so vivid to me. Like, you were, I don't think you, it's not like you were the first person, but definitely in the workplace, in a working situation, I believe you were the first person to say, I know who you are. I can see you. And I was like looking behind me, like, who are you talking? Are you talking to me? You're like, I'm talking to you. So, and that is so important, I think, for women, for someone to say that they are seen, because maybe they've never even heard that before. And that's what you've done for a lot. You've done that for so many of us.
And it's really important to hear because when I think back over my years, and I got that very little from anybody, really, from a cultural standpoint.
Right.
My mother was born in 1921. And so she was raised to believe that a woman's place was in the home. And she tried to instill that in me. I just rebelled.
Okay.
You don't need a career. All you need is a husband. And I refuse to be, defined by somebody else.
Right.
I've got to be my own person, and other people have to be okay with me being who I am. So it was always a struggle. And by the way, I'm a Gemini.
Oh,
So
boy.
it's oftentimes I feel like two separate people all in one day.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
the all these personality tests and the other kinds of tests that they give you in employment, I would score equally on both sides, just confuse everybody. But
Right.
that's who I am,
Yes.
almost like a contradiction in terms. But it's important for people to come to know that you are valuable and know what your value is. You have special gifts that some others may have, but nobody can be better at being you than you.
And you. Right.
And that's important for people to know because we don't always feel it. And that's another thing about women. We're into our emotions a lot.
Right.
And so we can't always lead out of emotion, though. That's not the way we should lead. You're entitled to your emotions, but you have to learn how to manage them and not run from them because they're healthy.
Right.
If you don't let yourself be what you're feeling, controlled,
Okay.
not out of control,
Right.
but controlled, because anger is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we literally explode on the
Right.
inside sometimes.
Yeah.
But you cannot get angry and hurtful at the same time.
Right.
So those are things that we learn over time as well. There were so many times that I was in a rage.
Yes.
I mean, beyond angry and
Right.
all the way over into a rage that I knew I had to remove myself.
Right.
because I was tempted to say or do something that was not only detrimental to me, but to
To
others.
other people.
And
Right.
so it's a journey. It's a journey. It's
Mm-hmm.
a process. Our tendency is to nurture everybody, and we've got to learn when not to nurture,
Mm-hmm.
because we become enablers. We will raise children that won't get out of your house.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to know ourselves well enough to know how we're going to react in certain situations and prepare ourselves in advance for that if we can.
Right.
So looking at my calendar each night, Natasha,
Yes.
I look at where I'm going to be, where I need to be, and that determines my prayer life for the next morning.
Okay. Right. That
I,
makes
I need to
sense.
pray about some people in some places where I
That you're
know
going to
I'm going
be.
to be and I'm likely to encounter.
Right.
And so, you know where I live also.
Yeah.
It is predominantly Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
And so even after all these years, the African Americans are only about 3.2% of the population where I live.
Right.
So I wanted to do what most other blacks did too, go to another city
Mm-hmm.
where there was more people that looked like me
Mm-hmm.
and where the opportunities were greater.
Right.
But God never allowed it.
Yeah.
He told me to bloom where I was planted. And so I'm still trying to bloom or bud where I'm planted.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the same church I was born and baptized in. I've never been a member of another church. I'm a stay putter. I don't run from things. I just tough it out and do the best I can, but then try to help other people navigate some of those same hurdles so that they don't fall into a pit.
Right.
Because somebody's always trying to prepare a pit for you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I know. It's really interesting, and I think that you have a lot of knowledge because there's so many, like I said, there's so many women that you have supported and mentored over the years. I know you've seen it all. So you are known for pushing people out from behind the curtain. We use that phrase sometimes before they're ready. That's what happened to me, by the way. Sometimes before they're ready. How do you know when someone was ready to be seen?
I really can take a look at how confident they are when they're behind the curtain, when they think nobody's looking, because they're accustomed to not being seen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're confident in your space, if you're confident in your ability to do what you know that nobody else can do behind the curtain, then I know you're ready to come out. You just don't think you are.
Right.
The thing that I try to do, and I hope I'm successful at, is to walk alongside you and to check in with you on a regular basis to let you know that, it's not always easy, but you can
Right.
do this.
Right.
To be your encourager, to be your cheerleader, to be your fan, because I really am one.
Yes.
I'm a fan of yours. I'm a fan of women in general because, if people would, if women would take the time to understand that we don't have just one job, ever, ever. It's more like 3 or 4 jobs going on at one time. If you can juggle that, you can certainly step up
Right.
in that one.
Right. So
And it's just all about being the best you that you can be.
yes. Well, one thing that we all know about you is that you tell the truth and you tell it the way it needs to be told when it needs to be told. So how do you balance that? I mean, because you have always been encouraging, but you also tell us the truth. So how do you balance encouragement with truth as well?
How do I balance it? I think I try to be conscious of everybody's personality.
Okay.
Because along with our personalities come certain, there's a weak side and a strong side to our personalities.
Right.
So if I see that someone is prone to be a people pleaser, then I watch my tone because I don't want them doing something because they want to please me.
Right.
I want them to do it because they know that that's yours, that you can. So I speak in a different kind of tone. For those who are really a mini me, they just don't know they're a mini me,
Yeah.
I encourage that out of them.
Okay.
I encourage their voices to be louder, not softer.
Yeah.
For some people who are overly aggressive and angry all the time,
Mhm.
I encourage them
Mhm.
to not stop what you're saying, just change your tone.
Okay.
What the end goal is always to be heard.
Right.
It's more important to be heard than to be seen.
Right.
And so be careful about what you say and how you say it.
Mhm.
So once you take the time to get to know people better,
Mhm.
and when you see leadership capabilities and you learn a little bit more about them, you know what motivates them.
Right.
And so you just constantly motivate and you constantly push. You and I, we like competition.
Yes.
We didn't know that at first, but we do like competition.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know other and so it's like I don't want to come in last. I don't want to
Right.
just get there,
Yeah.
you know.
And there's some things we
I
don't care
drive and
about, Sharon. There are some things we're competition for some things, but some things we're like, we don't really, we don't care about
yeah,
that. We don't care about that.
no,
Yeah. You can go first. It's
that's not
fine.
really
Yeah.
and it and you get there. Some of that is spiritual maturity as
Mhm.
well. All of it's about becoming mature.
Right.
And so how you go about achieving things is always a work in
Right.
progress. But you do. And when I turned 40 years old, there was something about becoming 40.
Mhm.
I dreaded being 30. I thought
Okay.
that was the end of the world being 30. But once I survived it and then lived 10 more years beyond it, being
Right.
40 was liberating.
Mhm.
And I found myself saying all the time, you know, I just really don't have to do that anymore. I'm 40
I
years
know
old.
it.
I'm 40 years old. I can say this if I want to. I'm 40 years old. I can do this if I want to. I
Right.
don't have anything to prove to
Right.
anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And so when we can get to those spaces where you're no longer proving to somebody
Mhm.
else that you have a right and a reason and a responsibility.
Right.
That's my mantra. I have
Okay.
a right to be here. I have a reason to be here. And I have a responsibility
Mhm.
in my space
Right.
all the time,
Yeah.
always.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So, Sharon, looking back now, what do you know about leadership that you could not have known then?
I think what I learned over the years more than anything else about leadership, Natasha, is that everybody has the capability to be a
Mhm.
leader and that everybody is already a leader in their own right in some arena or another. And I didn't believe that before. I thought that leadership was really something that only certain people could ascribe to. Not everyone was uh, built to be a leader, and that's not true. Every parent is a leader, every
Mhm.
teacher is a leader. No
Right.
matter what role you have or what profession you may be in, you have leadership capabilities already innate within
Mhm.
you. It's a matter of bringing it out and refining those skills,
Mhm. Mhm.
knowing and
Mhm.
recognizing those things that you're good at, and not trying to force yourself into a spot that's not yours to have. You don't have what it takes for that, but you're still a leader in some
Right.
venue. And so it's important to come to know your strengths as well as your weaknesses. We focus on our
Mhm.
weaknesses way too much, or we tend to focus on our strengths way too much.
Okay.
We have to have balance. We have to
Mhm.
know how one supports the other,
Mhm.
and how to bring out the best of who you are from both those vantage points, because nobody's good at everything.
Right. Right. I do feel like that leadership does take courage, and resilience. And I know we're talking about, women here, which, women leaders. But I'm just remembering that the first time someone maybe even referred to me as a leader, and I was like, why are they calling me a leader? That for if you remember your first job where you are managing people, that's one type of leadership, or it was a situation where someone said you were leading a project or you were responsible for something. It could be really scary, especially for folks that are really starting off. What do you wish women understood about courage in those situations?
I wish that women understood that courage is not the absence of fear.
Mhm.
Courage is doing or being in spite of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can be fully terrified, yet still be effective
Right.
and know the difference. Because in some instances, you go charging headlong into something without fear, and it's very dangerous. But you
Yes.
were so concentrated on not being afraid that you didn't
Right.
take time to evaluate your environment. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
always be cognizant of our environment, whether we're at work or whether we're someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
wish that women would know that courage is not what they grew up thinking it was, but you're
Okay.
already brave. You're already
Right.
brave. You've made it
Right.
this far, wherever far is for you. And
Mm-hmm.
you've made it that far by being
Mm-hmm.
brave, by facing down your giants, the giants in your life that threaten to just eat you alive. You have made it this far because you're brave and courageous. And
Right.
so courage is some made up thing that we seem to have in our mind
Right.
because we watch too many fairy tales. And so,
Exactly.
we
Yes.
women need to know that you're probably more courageous than any other species that God
Mm-hmm.
created, simply
Right.
because uh, if you are a mother, you're about the
Mm-hmm.
most courageous individual on the face of the earth
I know
because
that's
there's
right.
absolutely nothing that you would not do or face
Mm-hmm.
down to
Mm-hmm.
protect or save your child.
Right.
But by the same token, you're courageous because you're believing that I can make it in spite of any lack that you may
Mm-hmm.
have. And you'll give to somebody else your last
Mm-hmm.
meal, your last dollar,
Right.
because I can go this long without it myself. They may
Yes.
not be able to go that long
Right.
without it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so when women think of themselves in the terms of being, I'm brave every day that I show up when I don't want to. I'm
Right.
brave in those days where I woke up and I really wanted to just cover up my head because I don't feel it today.
Mm-hmm.
We're expected. We expect ourselves. We put ourselves in that position of thinking we don't have the luxury of
Yes.
self care. That we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the luxury of taking time for just us. That it's
Right.
selfish when we take time for just us. But it's courageous when we set those healthy boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and help and take care of ourselves so that
Right.
we can stay strong, so that we can stay
Mm-hmm.
resilient, that we can continue to give up without imploding or exploding,
Right.
if
Yeah,
that makes.
that's good. And that's just, and that's why we love you, because you remind us, like, you're right. I think that some of us have this vision of what courage is. Probably has something to do with a superhero. Probably. I don't know. I don't know.
Exactly.
And really, we are exhibiting courage every single day. Especially for folks that go into if we're talking about a work environment every single day with the challenges that there are there, but they still get up. They go into those work environments. They lead people. Maybe they're part of the team, and some of those folks do thrive in those situations. And we're not saying it's not easy, that it's easy, but it does take courage to go on, back in those rooms sometime when we know maybe that we're not, as welcomed or wanted as we would like to be. And so that's a great reminder that we are already courageous. Yeah.
We really are, because we have to make up in our minds, under certain circumstances, that we already know that it's
Mhm.
dangerous out there. We
Mhm.
already know the kind of environment that we're going into.
Mhm.
And each time we decide with intentionality that
Right.
I'm going, and I'm going with putting my best foot forward. I'm
Mhm.
going no matter what somebody else says or doesn't say. I'm going, and I'm still going to do my best whether I'm appreciated or not. That's
Right.
courage.
That is
All of those
courage.
things are
Yeah.
courage.
Yes. Well, Sharon, as we come to a close here, I do have a couple more questions for you, and this has been such a theme in my life, and I really would like to hear, your answer to this. So, for women who are still behind the curtain, because we know there's still some women back there, a lot of them back there. Um, they're capable, they're prepared, but they're hesitant. What would you say to her right now?
To the hesitant, that I think what I would say is, there are other people besides myself that are not willing to let you just languish behind the curtain. You are needed. You are needed. What you offer is needed, and what
Right.
you can bring to the table is necessary. So don't get comfortable ever, wherever you are, whether it's behind the curtain or one step in front of the curtain. Don't get comfortable where you are. Always strive, because only those who complete the finish line can call themselves a winner. And there's a winner
Right.
in every one of us. So
Right.
so come out, be seen, be heard, show up, shine.
Mm-hmm.
It's your time.
Wow.
Especially if
That's
it's a young
awesome.
lady, it's your time. It's your
Yes.
season.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so this podcast is called Queenmaker. And, when I talked to you about this, even doing this podcast and what I was, you know, thinking about, you're so supportive. And honestly, had people in mind like yourself, Sharon, when I was thinking about who a Queenmaker is, because I feel like you are a queen in my eyes and a lot of our eyes. And you have made, I'm going to say the word made, a lot of queens and kings, but we talking about queens right now. What would your definition of a Queenmaker be?
I think that in a word, it is a queen maker is a person who cultivates what's already is. And to say more about that is a queen maker doesn't pour something new into somebody, because all the ingredients for being a queen is already there. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
take it to the kitchen. We women can relate to the kitchen. So you're going to make a cake,
Right.
and all the ingredients for that
Mm-hmm.
cake. My son's favorite cake is a pound cake. And all of that is called a pound for a reason. You got
Okay.
a pound of butter, a pound of eggs, a pound of sugar, and a pound of flour. No wonder it's so good.
Right.
But all those
Right.
ingredients is your pound cake. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't mix the right, and a pound cake is temperamental like women can be, you have to mix
Mm-hmm.
them exact proportions in an exact fashion at an exact speed for it to come out. And
Right.
so if you're a cultivator, you're going to prepare your oven at the right temperature. You're going to mix those
Mm-hmm.
ingredients and have your women to know you already have the eggs, you already have the
Right.
flour, you already have plenty of sugar. All you need to do is to mix your milk and your butter and your eggs, cream it, and get your consistency going. And once you got your own consistency going, nobody can stop you. And everybody's going to want a slice of what you got to offer.
Right. I love that.
That's the way
Well,
I see it.
Sharon, thank you so. Well, and you know what? And it sounds good to me. Sounds really good to me. Well, thank you so much for your for you know answering a lot of these questions and sharing your insights. And again, like there's so many people I know that you supported and you've helped, and I think you might be the longest standing mentor. I'm sure there's some people out there that's had people more than 25 years, but if you have, contact me, right? But it's been really great talking to you, and thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
And thank you for having me. And I want to say that I'm extremely proud of you. I always have been. So that has not changed. It's not new, nor has it changed. But I always knew that you were going to be the person behind the mic. You were the one who did it.
Oh boy.
So you keep
Yeah, after you
doing what
pulled me
you
out of the
do.
curtain. After you
You
dragged
keep
me from
doing what
behind the
you're doing.
curtain.
And and
Thank you,
and and
Sharon.
and to pay tribute to me, find you somebody that's behind the curtain and bring them out.
Right. I'll do that.
Okay? All right.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courage will take you into the room. Resilience will help you navigate what happens inside of it. But wisdom will tell you when it's time to stay and when it's time to move. Because there is another space, a space where you are seen, where you are valued, where you are not just tolerated, but wanted. Have you ever considered that? You're not here to shrink yourself into belonging. You are here to step forward, to discern, and to choose. That is courage. That is resilience. That is power. And Sharon showed us what happens when you do. You don't just change your life, you show other women what's possible. As we close today, I invite you to sit with what stirred, not to rush into action, but to honor the insight that found you. Leadership isn't about doing more, it's about listening deeper, choosing wisely, and trusting your own knowing. If this conversation resonated, please like this episode and subscribe here on YouTube. It's how this space continues to grow and how more women find their way here. And if you'd like to stay connected between episodes, you can follow me on Instagram at LiveWellHeal, where I share reflections and behind-the-scenes moments. You can also explore more at livewellheal.com when you're ready. Until next time, remember, I see you, and every crown is earned.